Hello, and welcome to Creator Weekly Live for March 10th, 2024. I'm Peggy Kay, and today I've got updates for Google Search. I've got tips for your YouTube thumbnails. I've got news from X about creating articles, and there's a bunch more. So I hope you stay with me. If you're here live, welcome. It's great to see you. And thank you for joining me today. So the first thing I wanted to mention, just a neat little update from Google Meet, where they have a new background for International Women's Day and Women's History Month. And you can see that it's a comfortable living room with portraits of women. This is pretty neat. And it highlights a bunch of really great women. You can learn who the women in the portraits are on the Google blog. You can also get all of this week's updates and tips in this week's newsletter. You can find that on my blog. And if you want to get all of the weekly news, updates, and tips in your email inbox, you should subscribe to my newsletter. That comes out once a week on Saturday. Be sure to subscribe. The first update I wanted to talk about today is a big one from Google. And what they announced this week is that they will be updating the Google search results to reduce the amount of spam. And this is a good thing, right? Everyone likes less spam. There's been a lot of buzz about how the search results are not as good as they used to be. And part of that is a high volume of low quality content. So the update that Google announced is that they are making two changes. One is improved quality ranking. So this is a change to Google's core algorithm for the Google search results to make sure that the most helpful information is what's at the top of the search results and to reduce unoriginal content. Along with that, they are also updating their spam policies to try and keep low quality content out of search. So one of the things that you need to know if you have your own website is that this is not a new policy for the most part. Google's overall policy for search is to make content for viewers, not for search engines. And this is just an extension of that. But in particular, they're focusing on three types of spam in the search results. One is what they call scaled content abuse. And what that refers to is using automation to generate high volumes of low quality content. And they are rewording the policy a little bit because originally this was all about automated content. And in reality, you don't really care whether it's automated content or human created content if it's low quality. So this doesn't limit what you put on your website, right? As long as you're putting content that's for humans and not generating a whole bunch of low quality content trying to boost your site up in the search results, this shouldn't be a problem. A lot of people have noted, oh, this sounds like it's against AI content. And Google's policy about AI generated content is a little bit more sophisticated than not allowed is allowed. Instead, what they say is as long as the content is trustworthy and based on expertise and experience, it's allowed, no matter whether you used AI to help you generate it or if you typed it all in by hand. What matters is the quality of the content itself. So there's two other types of spam that they are also focusing on, which is site reputation abuse. And as they mentioned, sometimes websites that have great content may also host low quality content provided by third parties with the goal of capitalizing on the hosting site's strong reputation. And so think along the lines of a university website or a news media site where they have a section of, really sort of off-topic seeming content where it's like, oh, a bunch of coupons or something promoting casinos or things like that. This is basically advertising, and it's low quality content because it's generated for the search engines and not for viewers. The third kind of spam that Google is actually targeting in on is expired domain abuse. And what this refers to is spammers purchasing domains that used to have a quality website on it. And the idea is, well, they get this domain, it has a great reputation, it used to have good content, so it still ranks in the Google search results. But instead of the good quality content that was there, they replace it with low quality or unoriginal content. And this is spammy, of course. So those are the three types of spam that Google is focusing on in this current update. They have a whole page for what web creators should know specifically about this update. There's questions answered, and really gets more into the nitty-gritty than the main announcement does. Again, they say that you should not be worried about this update if you're already creating content for visitors and trying to be original. We'll see how that goes. It's going to take a month for the core update to roll out and a couple weeks for the spam policy update to roll out. But an interesting thing is that a lot of SEO people have noticed that there have been a lot of sites, low quality sites mostly, removed from the search results entirely. So this is not just reducing their ranking, this is completely removing certain websites from the search results. These are manual actions by Google. They are sort of unrelated to this policy, but if you're on social media, you've probably seen some complaints from people. It seems like Google took down maybe whole networks of websites that used a lot of AI generated or spun or other low quality content. So that is the big update for this week. It's really worthwhile, if you have your own website, to do a review of Google's terms and understand what they mean when they say they want to promote helpful content. And hopefully your site is not impacted. Again, I want to say welcome to everybody who's in the live chat. It's good to see you here today. This is a hard morning for me. We changed our clocks forward last night, and I'm not a morning person to begin with, so losing an hour was not great. Hopefully next week I'll be back to normal. And I know this is confusing if you're out there and you're not in the US or Canada or any other country that changed their clocks this week. It's really confusing that different countries change their clocks at different times. I'm all for not changing the clocks at all, but that's a whole separate discussion. All right, so the next thing I wanted to mention really briefly is that YouTube has a great video on the YouTube Insider channel. You should be subscribed to that channel if you are a YouTube creator. Great news, tips, updates. It's really excellent. But this week I wanted to point out specifically that they have an interview with Chucky, a guy named Chucky, where he is the creator of thumbnails for Mr. Beast. And even if you don't personally like the thumbnails that Mr. Beast makes, it's worth watching this video because he talks a lot about how they make decisions, about how to make the thumbnails, and how thumbnails can stand out from the crowd of thumbnails, basically. Also in the discussion is Todd, who leads YouTube's growth and discovery team. So there is some discussion about the YouTube algorithm, how thumbnails play into that. One of the big things that, for me, that they answered in this video is what happens if you change the thumbnail or title on your video? Does your video get boosted by the YouTube algorithm? And honestly, I feel like I've seen that. But the reality is that's not the YouTube algorithm boosting it because it changed. What you may be seeing is you change the title, you change the thumbnail, more people are seeing it and clicking on it, and that is what is giving it the boost. So the algorithm doesn't have to do anything different. Instead, it's just seeing, are people interested in this video? If people are clicking on the video, they like the thumbnail, they are interested in the title, and they're watching the video, then the YouTube algorithm shows it to more people. So you get an increase in impressions and hopefully an increase in views. So I thought that was pretty interesting. This is a long topic. I think it's like 45 minutes long, but it's worth watching or listening to. They say it's like a podcast, so maybe you can listen to it. I'm not sure. There's also a transcript if you prefer to read. So those are the big updates from YouTube. Really, no new features announced this week. And for those of you who are for those of you who have AdSense for content, this is AdSense for your own website or blog. There is a small update where now if there's a lot of jargon here. If your website that is monetized with AdSense has issues with meeting the new consent management requirements for serving ads in the European Economic Area and UK, you will now see a notification in your AdSense Policy Center So in your AdSense account, there will be a notification and you can fix it if you want to. This is really all kind of confusing to me a little bit, but if you don't want to go out and do some coding and use a third-party consent management platform, Google has one. You can enable that in your AdSense account. You just need to make sure everything is configured correctly. If it's not configured correctly, you will see a notice in your AdSense Policy Center. And I'll add that this week, new regulations went into effect in Europe. These are aimed at the big platforms, so Google and YouTube, Meta, Amazon, Apple, TikTok, maybe one other. I can't remember. So if you're in Europe, you're probably seeing new options this week. They have to allow you to choose what is your default browser on your mobile device. They have to allow unbundling of different services. It's all kind of confusing to me since I'm not in Europe. I don't see those settings. And I think that at least at the beginning, it may be confusing to people when they see something pop up that says, oh, you can pick what it is you want to use for your various services. And you've never had to do that before. And you're kind of shown a list of 24 different web browsers and you have to pick one. It sounds like it may be confusing to start, but it's the law. So that's the deal. I'll say that there are also additional support options that may be available if you're in the European Economic Area and probably the UK also. This is also for compliance. So if you're having trouble with YouTube or Google or one of these other big platforms, check and see what your support options are. You may have unique support options because you're in Europe. So shifting gears just a little bit. A new change this week was from X. They introduced articles. Now, this seems like it's a feature that the old Twitter was working on. They've decided to launch it. And the idea is that if you have access to articles, it lets you write an article, sort of just like what I'm showing in the screenshot here. It's got formatting, bold, italic, and strike through. You can also embed images and videos, and that's it. It's basically like blogging on Twitter. X. I don't know why you would want to do this. There's tons of free blogging platforms out there, and it seems unlikely that most people would be interested in content that is only available on X, especially since some of the content isn't really visible unless you're signed into an account. I don't know how that works with articles exactly. This is a feature that is part of the premium feature package, so you have to be a subscriber to use it. If you already pay for an X subscription, you might want to give it a try, but it seems like if you're interested in reaching a large audience with your content, posting natively on X is probably not the best way to do it. But if your audience is on X, you might give this a try. I think we'll probably see some of the usual suspects using this. There's a lot of Elon Musk fans who really have gone all in on X. They will probably use this new article feature. Will people actually read the articles? That's a whole separate issue. Okay, I wanted to also mention a couple of updates from other video platforms. One is that the CEO of Twitch announced their plans for the coming year, and they talk about helping you grow your communities. They're going to make it so that you can more easily share clips to social media. This is going to be an update not only for streamers, but also for viewers. They're going to add improvements to the stream together collaborative streaming option that lets it makes it easier to get set up and set up the collaborations. They will have merged chats and combined viewership. And then they're going to improve the Twitch mobile experience, which seems like a good update. And finally, they are making updates to the Partner Plus, or now Plus program, to give eligible streamers higher revenue share. And this all sounds good. You can tell from these notices what the goal of the platform is. Community is their word for the year. TikTok also announced some updates where sorry. TikTok is also going to be providing more resources to TikTokers, I guess you call them. There's a new Creator Academy that's coming out with information and tips. And they are also expanding monetization a little bit. They have this creativity program, which was released in beta. Now it's going to be called the Creator Rewards Program. And they say it's designed to reward high quality original content over a minute long. It says optimized rewards formula focused on originality, play duration, search value, and audience engagement. This is interesting because of that at least 1 minute requirement. They are really focusing on longer videos on the platform. I don't know what the goal is exactly, but as time goes on, various video platforms seem to converge their various features. Another mention, they are expanding paid subscriptions. Originally, it was only for live, and they are going to expand this feature to non-live creators as well. So again, TikTok is trying to boost what they want viewers to watch or what they think viewers are watching. That's why they have this 1 minute long minimum. An interesting thing I read about this week, and if you looked at my newsletter, you see the links. There's a bunch of spammy content on TikTok, of course, because it's everywhere. And when people learn how to make this auto-generated, low-quality content, it always says, make it at least a minute long. So you have a whole bunch of these spammy videos that are just over a minute long. Why? Because then they're eligible for the monetization. And so the way the monetization programs are structured, that actually drives the kind of content people are making, whether it's good content or spammy content. And just really quickly, I wanted to mention an interesting study that Social Media Today looked at. There's a new report that looks at how social media engagement relates to content readership. And there's a graph. What you see is a line going up. That's what you would expect to see if there was a correlation between the engagement on posts that have a link and people clicking the link to view those posts directly. If you notice the purple dots, it does not follow that line. The bottom line is people see the posts on the social platform and they respond to it, and they may like it or post a comment. But the reality is they're not clicking through to read the content. It's mostly based on headlines and vibes and whatever people want to talk about anyway. So it's kind of discouraging if you're using social media to try and get people to view articles on your website, but probably not too surprising. Finally, there's something for you to try this week. Adobe has announced that there is now an Adobe Express mobile app. This is their sort of light video editing platform. I'm sorry, video, image, and other editing platform. And it's free to use. It has the Firefly generative AI tools built in. While the app is in beta, you can use the premium features for free. So this is a good deal if you want to give this a try. You can use the generative AI to create images and short video clips, and then you can edit things in this mobile app. There are some technical requirements. Unfortunately, it's not available for all devices. If you are using an iPhone, you have to have iOS 16 or higher. And if you are on an Android device, you can see that it's really limited to Google Pixel devices and some Samsung devices. Devices must have 4 gigabytes of RAM or more, and you can see the list of officially supported devices. I suspect that it will also work on some devices that are not officially supported, but as in all these things, your mileage may vary. It also specifically does not include tablets for some reason. I don't see iPads or Android tablets listed in the supported list. I think that's kind of a bummer because personally I like a bigger tablet screen compared to my phone screen, but it may work. So if you have one, give it a try. It's pretty cool. So those are the updates for today. I also wanted to mention that immediately after this, there's an eBoard chat I'm hosting. We're going to talk about backing up content, something I go on and on about all the time. But even if you don't take the poll on YouTube here, I will reshare it to my community tab or on X or on LinkedIn. Back up some content today. Make it something that you do periodically. Any content that you post online that is important to you, that you would be sad if it disappeared, make a backup. You may never use the backup, but it's like insurance. You probably don't use it, but it's there if you need it. Those are the updates for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. It's great to see you here, Jolyn, Braylon, and Craig. If you're watching this recording, thank you for joining me, and I hope you can join me live again next Sunday, same time.